Welcome to another episode of Reseller Evolution. I'm Scott.
And I'm Carl.
And Carl, we are on podcast number 14.
There we go.
14.
The numbers keep going up one by one.
Seems like yesterday we're on podcast number 1.
Yeah, it's been quick. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. Yeah. I hope people are enjoying it.
And we hit another subscriber. You were telling me before we started recording here.
I was pretty excited. We went from 85 to 86. None of you guys better unsub now or I'll be really upset.
Yeah, really, eh? Yeah, YouTube will unsubscribe 5 people. And we're like, what?
Oh, no.
But, So anyways, how's things going, Carl? How was your week?
It was another exciting week. And exciting, I mean, like, annoying things. But I won't go into them because we're going to be positive, right?
Positive. Well, hey, negative sells, though. Like, I'll just say, Carl had a horrible week and we'll get lots of views.
Damn it. I feel like an old man. No one takes pride in their work anymore.
They don't, dude. They don't.
Oh, geez. So
it's not even pride in work. I know you told me off the show a little bit, but it's you got to double check your work. You just got to just double check it. Don't just take for granted it's going to.
Let me put it this way. I got a patio door installed and it won't even lock. And they just left. I didn't notice. It's like, I can't even lock this door. I can't shut it properly. It's like, what the hell is this? Anyways.
Yeah.
But the other reselling thing that happened was I shut down my, I went down and took everything out of my booth. That didn't take very long since it was a little glass shelf. But I'm like, the owner and I are really good friends. And he's like, oh, I hope you're coming back. You're going to visit me. It's like, yeah, of course, we're friends. So, but I don't have any regrets. I think it was the right choice. And I'm glad I did it. I just had to find something that makes more sense for me. And honestly, my mind isn't really there for doing the booth. Even if I had the big booth, I think I'm just not right now in the right headspace. I mean, dealing with a lot of stuff here, but also I want to really get the stuff I have in the house listed, and I've been fairly successful for that. So I'm going to keep that up.
Yeah. You do have to be in the right headspace. I think probably if I look at myself in kind of headspace, I guess, is involved in this. I think the biggest criticism for me is I'm not very good at decorating it. Like, I can make it look neat and tidy, but you watch some people and they just go to town. They have like an artistic eye and they can pile things up and make it look really homey and nice. And I just put a tag on it, throw it on the shelf for the most part, right? And try to keep it tight by keep bringing product in. But so I guess there's different ways of having headspace into it, right?
Yeah.
But you definitely have to be into it to the point where you're actually bringing stuff in. You know what I mean?
So do you want to talk about, did we have any feedback from the last show?
Yeah, we got a comment from Randy. Do you want me to read it off here or you want to read it?
Yeah. Or I can read it off and you can comment if you want.
Okay. Yeah, go.
So he said, Randy said, hi, I would really like to have a booth, but the nearest spot is an hour's drive. And it closes before Christmas and does not open until the 1st of April. So that's kind of interesting. Like, I didn't know that they would have, like, for me, it's the same thing. It's about an hour drive till you get to the reasonable priced thrift antique stores. But I'm surprised it's closed for 3 months. So
yeah, we have one near us too. It's based on tourist season.
Oh, right.
Right. So it's down by the lake. We're on Lake Erie and it's a small little town. The village actually, as far as I'm concerned, when they have yard sales, it's an older village. So down by right on the shores of Lake Erie near Long Point, they actually have some really good yard sales for whatever reason. For a small town, they have always some nice old stuff. And again, you're going to the concept of it only really takes one yard sale, but you're going to find 5 or 6 really good yard sales every time I go down there. But they have an antique store in that area, and they're not closed for quite the same amount of time,
right?
But they're closed for a couple of months for sure, and maybe 3 months. And I think after Christmas, because Christmas is just Christmas, it's what it is, right? And and I know vendors and they do very well there. Like they do well when it's open. Obviously, when it's closed, I'm not sure how the rent works though. Like, are you paying a storage spot when they're closed? Like, I don't think that's really fair. But
I don't think they would. That wouldn't make sense.
I don't
I
know.
would assume they would just take that 3 months into account of their monthly costs to you. Because what are they going to do? Charge you for when you're not even selling
They
stuff? But
they might have a storage fee or something, right? Like I don't know,
maybe, yeah, maybe.
right? So it's hard to say. Uh, so what's the rest of the comment?
So he's also saying a few years ago there was a space where 3 other vendors and I were set up, but the building was sold. Because the space is gone, I've narrowed my scope of what I buy, and that's it. Well,
Yeah, so I was also in a like I talked about this story before, but where I am now is a large warehouse, and it was divided into two, and it was actually half was owned by one owner and half was owned by another owner, which I'm in, so they owned it. But when I first got my start, it was on the other half. It was a bit dumpier. I've gone into that before, but that was eventually sold, and there was some sort of zoning thing where the bottom floor has to be commercial and you can do, and they made apartments in the upper floors. Um, so it actually kind of upgraded the building, which probably helped with our sales. And there's a brewery next door now.
oh, I'm sure
So
that helps a lot.
yeah, and it's I mean, we definitely help them more than they help us, but it's fun to go after, you know, you work and you fill up the booth and you go down there for a pretzel and some dip with a couple of beers and it's good, right? So
Yeah. Well, it makes it more like of a place to go too.
yeah. But kind of getting back to Randy's comment, it
Yeah.
was sold. So I got there in June and it was we were kicked out for October,
Mm.
right? And I actually left. I guess it was the end of October. I left about 2 weeks before everyone else because I knew nobody was getting ready, and they had some pretty big booths. There was a lot of stuff, and
Oh
I'm
my
like,
god.
this is going to be a shit show. I'm leaving 2 weeks early, so I got my stuff out of there. But in that meantime, in that time, one of the other vendors was opening a store down the road because of this, and he asked me if I would like to be part of that. So it was kind of nice. He's since passed on, but it's it was nice that I was asked to come along. Right. So,
So should we get into the main topic?
all right. What is the main topic?
We're going to talk about auctions, live and online.
Well, let me
And
ask you, Carl. What do you like? Do you like auctions?
I love auctions.
Yeah.
I find, well, the nice thing about the online ones, of course, is you don't have to leave your seat.
Right.
So, and for me as a cherry picker, often it's a good way. Sometimes, like, I'll get one-off items, and like I'll buy the $200 item for 50, and those are good. But honestly, the best scores I've had for online auctions are when like the lots are badly described or not completely shown,
Yeah.
and you see one thing in there. Those are rare because, like, I guess if you want to get into it, we can talk and about online first, just briefly.
Sure. I don't
Okay.
care. Yep.
So, I'm not sure how much you buy online. How much do you use the online auctions? I don't even
Well,
know.
there's a couple local ones here that I do use for sure.
Yeah.
The dream auction ones I buy probably uh let's say if they do 4 a month, one every week, I probably buy a little bit every 3 of 4.
Yeah, it's the same for me. Just in general for auctions, like one every 2 weeks, maybe. For Max, I use Max Soul. Well, I look at all of them, but there's different levels of online auctions, right? Like here in Ottawa, we have like a really professional one, at least 2 of them. I don't even look because all the stuff on there is high end, but also tends to go for high end prices,
Right.
and they're probably willing to ship across the world too. So since it's high end stuff, I think they probably do a lot of that level of auctions, which is
Right.
great. And I know people here in Ottawa who actually shut down their booth, don't do eBay, and send everything to that auction because they get the really good stuff. And he says it was just he got better money doing it that way and with less rigmarole over everything,
Right.
even after all the fees.
Yeah, it's tempted, but I think it's you got to remember they're taking 25-30%. You know what I mean? So you got
Yeah.
to keep that in consideration too, right? So if you're selling something for $100 and you might have paid 10 for it, you're losing 40%, right?
Yeah. No, it's the
So
same.
so that's fine. If you're getting
Yeah.
60%, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But you really have to make sure you're buying it on the cheap because they're taking 30% right off the top. So,
And there's a risk there, but there's also like
and there's a risk there for sure.
So I don't buy much from there. My favorite Max sold. And I do get stuff there, but there's also with Max sold, like I would say I buy something every 2 weeks. And a lot of the times you kind of recognize the resellers because they have everything individually in one listing. And usually you can't buy things cheap enough even with those single listings. So you have to be a little careful. Sometimes I'll see stuff that I know is like, okay, this is a reseller selling their duds. So I see that as well.
Yeah.
But also the good ones I find are like often or sometimes estate sales will actually sell through the auction house. And those can be really good. So the lazier they are, the more they make piles and lots of stuff, the better the chance that there's something in there. Those are my favorite. No. I like Max sold because everything starts at $1. So sometimes what I would get frustrated with was like the middle tier auctions houses. Like there might be something, okay, there's potential there for me to buy that. But the minimum bid would be where I would make no profit. And so I just kind of stopped looking at some of those mid-tier auction houses. So that's what I like about Max sold is that they have to start at $1. If they ever get rid of that, it would be disaster. But because a lot of them Max sold ones are either run by the company, you can hire them to do it, or they're people doing it themselves. So
yeah, I don't think they're going to get rid of the dollar. They might push it to $2. I know high bid does $2 starts, but it really doesn't make a difference, right? They're just gonna, that's a place to start. They want to just dump the stuff.
Sometimes
right?
you're going to get amazing deals though, like
yes,
like for books. Sometimes you can buy like I remember the first thing I ever bought off Max Sold were cookbooks, and I got boxes and boxes and boxes of books for $1.
yeah,
but the value of those was probably $1 for all those books combined. So but you can but like with all auctions, sometimes you're like, I got it for this much, and you're like, no other bidders showed up, and you buy that thing for $1, and you're pretty amazed. So for a high bid, you said it starts at 2, but that's the minimum. Is that the minimum? Because they definitely can start higher at the beginning bids.
Yeah, well, the one I bid on is 2. There was another one I used to bid on. They started at 6, but they were a little bit higher end stuff. They were definitely old, like vintage, 25 years at least, but a lot of the stuff was good old antique stuff.
Did it all start at 6 or just some of the?
No, they all started at 6.
Oh, see, that's
like
interesting.
All the items
in
that particular auction, by that auction company would start at 6. But on high bid, the one I'm in, they start at 2. So I think you have the choice as the auction house what to start your bids at. So
yeah, it seems to be very dynamic for that because like some of them like are on high bid and they will definitely start higher than not everything starts the same. They have options there. So I guess it depends where you are. Maybe even the auction house, like maybe some of them are just deciding.
The one that I go to, they don't cherry pick really. Like, I mean, if it's something ridiculous, they're going to say, listen, I can't put this in the auction. But for the most part, they just put everything. And what they've kind of done is they've kind of gone to that format of Max Sold. And they'll go into a house and they'll just list everything in that house.
That's interesting.
And then you go to that house and pick it up. Right. So they've kind of gone to that format. They do consignor because I take stuff there a couple times a month, and they're usually full, but they have a little warehouse place. Once a month, they have what is considered a consignor. I guess they call it a consignor lot or auction. But for the most part, 3 of the 4 each month is going to be at a house. So,
okay.
And I like that for sure. It's fun. It's at home, but you don't get a really chance to see it. They do have a viewing day, but I don't got time to go down and view stuff unless there's something I'm really interested in that could go for high. But for the most part, when I go online, it's all about just, nickel and diming it, kind of picking up the crumbs. My whole concept of going to auctions is all about picking up the crumbs because I don't want to get caught up into something too expensive, right? Unless I really like it and I'm there and it's a live one. I, for the most part, just try to pick up the crumbs.
The thing with Max Sold too is there's a bit of buyer beware there. There's no guarantees. So I
And
think
the thing about Max Sold for me is living in a rural area, there's not a lot around my area. You know what I mean? So I
oh
really hardly ever look at Max Sold. So I might be missing a couple auctions in my area, but I got so much ways of sourcing right now. I just haven't had to go that route because
mm,
I don't want to buy a book for $1 and then have to drive an hour to go pick it up. You know what I mean? I want to make sure I'm maximizing a lot of stuff, and there's no guarantee in that, right? If I get outbid, I'm not going to overbid an item just to have more to pick up, right? So it's it the Max Sold because of the distance that most of the auctions are, where I have to go pick it up. I'm not really on there much, but the one I'm on Dream, the one I go there, is pretty much all local. Like it's maybe half an hour at the most, right? Like it'd be
yeah, that's
Southport.
great.
A lot of them
Like
are local. So
yeah, for me, Max Sold there's probably 3 to 5 closing every week.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Well, you're a
most
bigger city, right? So
we're a bigger city, and most of them, and I will with Max Sold at least you can say, well, I think all of them you can say what's the max distance you're willing to go, and just show me the auctions within that range.
yeah,
I'll drive an hour. Uh, I prefer less. Don't get me wrong.
yeah.
So I picked up a fairly good Max Hold for me.
Well, I don't mind driving an hour if I'm going to fill the truck up, but if I'm going to go for a $1 book, like it's
Yeah,
going to cost me more in gas than what I'm going to be able to get that book.
I've driven an hour to pick something up for 30 that I sold for 200. So I
Well,
guess that's
yeah.
okay, right? But that's
But there's no guarantee. What if that was the only item and you didn't, and it broke, or you get there and it's got a
that's the
crack in
risk
it,
you take.
right?
And
So-
then you try to forget about those.
exactly.
But
So
I did pick up a Max Sold auction lot a couple weeks ago with a whole bunch of magazines. I think it was like 80 to 100 magazines. And I
yeah,
was a good boy. I actually listed them all.
nice,
And I've sold 2 and I paid for the whole lot.
nice.
Yeah.
I
I'm
like
not
that.
gonna make a fortune off of these. Like they sell for like $10 to $15 American plus shipping.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of them I'll be sitting on for a long time because like when I look at the values of how much they sold for, often they're selling for $10 with free shipping. So I'm gonna have to lower the prices. So but in terms of like ease of it was nice because it was a big bulk lot. And magazines are I got really lazy at the end and just would take a picture of the front and back, any damage. And then, like I said, I listed them all already. So that's really quick for me. But so let's go on a little bit. So should we talk about our tips for buying online in terms of strategies?
yeah. I don't know if there's so much tips. Like, I mean, there's pros and cons for sure. If you got
Yeah.
some tips, I'd like to hear them. But I mean, the pros would be that you're sitting at your house, and uh, a lot of times too, you don't even have to be there. You can go through it, and you can just put in your highest, what your maximum would be on an item, and you just let it ride. You can do that kind of stuff. But
What I do, it's kind of nerdy, but I'll use an Excel sheet. And I already have it built. It's not that complicated. But what I can do is like say let's just use let's use a digital camera, right? With a model because that's easy.
yeah,
So what I can do in the Excel sheet is I'll look to see how much if it's a high-end camera, let's say it sells for 200 on eBay, I can see that. In my Excel sheet, I can type in that $200 that it sells for, and it will calculate how much I should bid based on a net I desire. So what it does, it's like say on that $200 camera that sells on eBay, I want to net 100, right? So it will go through. It'll take out all the fees for eBay. It'll take all the fees for shipping. It'll do the conversion of the currency because I'm on United States currency and Canadian. Take that net value. Then it'll calculate what I should bid based on the buyer's premium and the GST, and calculate back what I should bid on that item to get that $100 profit. So
wow.
maybe that wasn't very clear.
No, that's clear. I get it.
So
I think that's a lot of work. I just do it in my head.
It's no work though. Once you write that formula in Excel, you're done. I just reuse it.
Yeah.
So only thing I have to do is like if I see another camera I just type in. I only have to type in two things. How much does it go for? And how much do I want to net? And it will tell me how much to bid and my max bid. And that just saves me from, because like this is true with live auctions too, is sometimes like you bid 100, you're not getting $100 bill at the end of the auction.
No.
You're often getting $140 bill or something like that, right? So that can be a little surprising, especially if you're new to auctions.
Yeah,
This
well,
just
it's
helps me with
10%
that.
plus taxes. So I just rounded up to even 25%. So
Sure.
I do that in my live auctions too. I'm gonna add 25% to whatever I pay for it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
With Max Sold, it's an 18% buyer's premium.
What?
Yeah. And
Wow.
there's the taxes on top of that.
So you're at 30%.
That's right. So that if you're using Excel sheet, you wouldn't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, but I can do 30% in my head. Too much, too much, too much, too much.
I challenge you to do it faster than my little Excel sheet. But anyways, that's
Well,
you
you
don't
gotta
have
still.
to do this. I'm just saying this is like for me, my black and white thinking.
Yeah.
This helps me come up with a number, right? So I don't have to do any role playing with Scott this time. I can just use my little Excel sheet to do it. It's great.
Well, I think it's even more complicated than that, because you're doing 30% on the buy, but you're also losing probably 20% on the sell, right?
And it does all that for me. But I'm also varying how much net I want. Maybe you should be spending $20. You don't know because
no, I shouldn't. I should be going on to another location and finding cheap stuff.
Anyways, that's one tip for the nerdy people amongst us.
No, I like the way people get into it for sure.
I don't do this when I'm in a live auction. I'm talking about like an online auction, or if it's a lot. Like I can even do that too. I can say, well, there's a lot of 3 item. Anyways, I won't go into it. But there's things you can do with that. Saying, do you have any bidding strategies for online auctions?
Really, I don't know if it's a real strategy. It's just kind of a system. Like I really want to pick up my stuff for cheap. So, and I'm not sure if it's working. So I always put that as part of the equation. So if it's $100,
it's working. What do you mean by the item you're going to buy? Right? Yeah.
Like if it's a camera, we
Yeah.
don't know if it's working, if the battery compartment's corroded. So I usually just try to go cheap. I guess if there's strategy, let me think of a strategy here. So sometimes if I have time and I know I'm going to be home, I'll just sit here at the computer while it's closing and I'll bid that, because I don't want to push it up too high and have people kind of overthink, well, I could still make $20 on that. I just rather keep it low and kind of keep the person kind of, I'm going to get it cheap, and all of a sudden they're disappointed that they're not. They just walk away.
Yeah. It's like, and the nice thing with, like I was saying with the Max Sold, it's nice if it's a garbage lot. Those are almost worth it. Like I think Adam was saying just the other week he bought an auction lot and there was a silver compact case in it, which wasn't even listed in the listing. It was in the box. So you never sometimes you get those surprises too. Or like there was a time I bought a lot, or actually Two Dogs with Digs, Adrian, their friend Adrian, bought a doll lot, and all the garbage dolls were on the front and on top, and all of the amazing $200 were under the lot, under the box. You couldn't even see when he picked up the lot. So he made $1,000 off that lot that looked like it had garbage in it. So I'm not saying you should do that, but sometimes like if you can get your money back on the stuff you can see, sometimes it's worth it. And it's the same with box lots too, right?
Yeah, and I take those kind of risks at the live auctions. I do them online too, but really the online stuff is really, like I'm a little bit more. I don't know. I'm not into it as much. You know what I mean?
There's less of it around you.
Yeah. So I don't know. For me, I love the live auctions. I'm there. It's the heat of the moment. It's fun. I'm going to sit there the whole day. Going to go through tons of stuff. It's usually stuff that I'll never see again or haven't ever seen before. And I have an opportunity to pick some of that kind of stuff up cheap and learn from it a little bit, but just have some fun. And I usually fill up the truck. And,
so just before we get into we'll do the live auctions just in a second. I just want to talk about bidding. Just one last thing on the live auctions.
Yeah.
Is that when you're bidding on places of the Max Sold, do not bid before the day of the auction. Because if you bid your high bid at the beginning, someone's going to do I'll just pay a bit more. And then if they didn't beat your bid, they'll go, I'll just do a bit more. You want it. until they finally beat you, and they might have paid more than they would have been willing to on the day of the auction.
Right.
So
Right.
I highly recommend do not bid on the day. What I do is I try to bid 5 minutes before the close of the auction, and I already have my max bid then. And it depends on your technique. So for me, I actually use Alexa to give me a verbal warning in the room when the bidding is about to close, because I have had many a case where I've forgotten to bid on an auction,
Right.
and
Right.
that drives me nuts. So now I have a loud alarm that goes off, and I never regret it, because almost every time it goes off, I go, "Oh my god, yes, I need to bid." So if you have Alexa, that's one good use for her. Now for the final bidding, I would say it depends on your personality. So there's one way that works better, and then there's the way I use. So the way I do it is I just put my max bid within the last 5 minutes and just let it go. I might even close the page, which stops me from bidding over my max that
Yeah.
way. I think the better technique is the one that Adam mentioned, where he'll bid just above the other person's max bid so that he has a high bid, and then he times it down and sees if they bid. If they bid, then he waits until it is about to time out, and then he puts a little bit bigger bid just to make it go back and forth, and hopes the other person gets bored and leaves. That's probably the better technique. I'm not a patient man. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I've done that too. I don't know. You're kind of like, it's your time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so yeah, he was talking about it because it was doing 5 minutes at a time, which is crazy. Like usually it bumps it up to 2 minutes, but
right.
the one he was on was like 5 minutes. So like if you guys are each waiting 5 minutes, you're not
God,
going anywhere for a long time, right?
10
So,
minutes for a bit. Yeah, that's why I'm saying I don't do it. He
yeah.
came across a funny bid where they reached the max time for the auction. So his last bid, the other guy didn't have the chance to do it back because the auction ended. Even
Yeah.
it didn't add another 5 minutes, and like it normally does, which is kind of funny.
It
I've
just
never seen
shut
that
off.
occur. The
Yeah,
other
that's
thing
funny too.
sometimes what I'll do is if I see stuff I'm interested in, like a few days before the auction, I'll bid $1.
Yes. I was just
Uh,
gonna say that. Yeah.
yeah, and the reason for that is sometimes you get it for that dollar if for some reason you forget about the auction. And also, you just make sure you can bid. Like it's just weird. I get paranoid that I won't be able to bid. I'll put $1 in, and also go. I use the watch list as well. But that's my techniques, anyways, for the online auctions.
Yeah, for the high bid part of it, it gives you a green square if you're so-called winning, and a
Yeah,
red one if you're losing. I hate it when they say winning and losing, because you didn't win it. You bought it, right? Like
you're the
uh,
winner.
sometimes winning can be losing. So but anyways, so it highlights that item with a colored box, it's red or green. So
Yeah,
I'll go in there maybe a couple of days ahead of time, and I'll put in the minimum bids for all the items that I want, and then I'll sit there and I'll watch it as it counts down, and I'll just play along that way. Sometimes if I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to watch it, I'll just put in my max for a few items. But for the most part, I don't go too heavy on the onlines, but I do like the lives. Yeah, well, I have a bit of a honey hole. I don't really talk about where it is too much, but um, I do like it because it's. I mean, some of the stuff gets crazy high prices, but for the most part, I can pick up the crumbs. And what do I mean by that? There is just usually so much from an estate or something there that I can, and it's usually all old antiques,
yeah,
and I can pick that kind of stuff up for pennies on the dollar, like for a couple of bucks, or for, well, $5 really, because I think the minimum for the most part is five. The odd time they'll go to two, or they'll push it with another item, that type of thing. But I like box lots. I like different things like that. Um, but there's limited amount of money in that room and a limited amount of people, so not everybody's there for everything. And sometimes when there's a large collection of stuff like Royal Daltons or P&G figures or B&G figures, um, those items, and not that I really particularly care for those items, but if I can get them for $5 or $10 a piece, I'm picking them up all the day long, right? And selling them for 35 to $100. But it's they're going to cherry pick the better ones, and I'll push them up on those better ones,
Yeah.
and then eventually it gets to a point where they're just auctioning off lots because people already cherry picked what they want, or they've spent the money that they're willing to spend, and I'll pick the other stuff up for cheap.
Yeah, those live auctions are interesting because the dynamics of the people who are there is very different. Like
Yeah.
when I go, I found it's like there's the people who go just as a social event. I definitely see that. Then you have the people who are the booth people. You see, they like to stand around the sides or at the back, and they sometimes even get designated little areas for their huge piles of stuff.
Well, how it works with me, and they know me there because I've been going there for quite a while, and
Yeah.
they just they make piles for me throughout, like because they it's a very large room. People sit in the center, and then they kind of go around in a circle around everybody, and they always end at the front. But they'll just make piles in certain areas wherever they are at the time because it's just I usually fill the truck up, right? So sometimes I've had to go back the next day and pick up stuff that I couldn't fit in the truck, right? So
I remember here in Ottawa there's a auction house called Spooner Auctions. They don't do box lots anymore. For I assume everyone knows, but just in case, box lots means you're basically buying a box and it's full of different items, and you never know. Usually they try to theme it, but sometimes just be random stuff. You'll never know. You get like I don't know ball openers next to postcards, next to little toys, next to tchotchkes, next to whatever, right?
yeah,
So I was at Spooner Auctions here in Ottawa, and there was one box lot I wanted, and I was like, okay. So I bid up to $17, and I hadn't really done a lot of live auctions, and $17 is quite a bit for a box lot.
yeah.
And at that auction, when you buy it, they bring it to you. And so, I thought I'm going to get the one box, but I wasn't bidding. That $17 didn't get me one box. It got me about 12 to 14 boxes full of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it was comical because I'm sitting in the chairs in the middle too. I wasn't like even on the edge. And they brought box after box after box. And I just had piles and piles of
Wow.
basically junk around me. I made it all back with one little tiny figure in there,
Yeah.
which was like this Disney figure that it was like amongst all the junk.
Yeah.
But it was just comical. So if you haven't been to a live auction, just be aware that often, like especially if you're not a regular, they'll bring it to you, and so you get piled up with junk real damn quick. And you better have a good way of getting rid of all the garbage that you're going to get, because you're going to also get a lot of garbage with the good stuff too.
Yeah. So in this auction, for the most part, they do bring it to you. However, if it was something like that, they'll just say, we'll leave it here and you can get it later. Like, because those guys are bringing stuff up to the auctioneer as well. So they don't want to be taking like that many boxes to one location, right?
Yeah.
So, but it is funny when that happens, when you get tons of boxes, right? Like you get tons of shit for that price. Yeah, I remember because sometimes they'll go for tray to tray to tray. And if somebody doesn't want tray one, they put it with tray number two.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't want tray number one and tray number two, they'll put it with tray number three.
Oh,
and
I've seen people like
up, right?
And I've had that happen to me where it's like, I want something in the last tray they added.
Yeah.
I don't want any of the previous stuff, and I end up getting all of it.
Yeah.
Because
I've even had it where
people leaving it. They like the ones I've been to.
Yeah.
They do not want you leaving junk behind.
No, you can't leave it behind.
No, they'll get really upset.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever done it, but they make sure, because it costs them money to get rid of all the junk at the end.
Sure, for sure.
And they'll know, I'm pretty sure you won't be they know as you won't be let back. But that's not really being an issue. I'm just saying, you can't just leave the stuff you don't want.
So sometimes a strategy could be, and I've had this happen to me, if I get a bunch of tray lots, somebody will come to me after and offer me something for that one particular piece. They just didn't want the whole tray, right? So I've had that happen. So
I had that happen too, and I didn't want to give it to them because I figured that was actually a good thing that was in the lot.
Yeah, well, just ask for a higher price. You don't have to ship it. You just, I want $20. That's what I was going after. I was going to sell it online for $50. You give me $20. really you were only going to sell it online for 30, but they don't need to know that, right? So, but you give me $20, I'm happy, or
Yeah.
set a high price. But just say, I do resell. I know the value of this. I won't ask for full value, but I want to get pretty close, right? So give me $20 and I'm happy. But yeah, no, I like the lives better. I like it because I find it a lot like, and I'm gonna go back to my poker analogy,
Yeah. I knew you were
right?
going to say poker. Yeah.
And I do like sitting back to see who I'm going against,
Right.
because if I think they're a high roller and they're in it to win it, like I'm gonna push them. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna push them high, and I'm gonna make it expensive because they're my competition, right? Like,
Okay.
right? So, um, and I have to see them go for certain items and not give up, and I have to. I really like. I don't just play around with it. I really analyze what they're doing and how many times they do it. So it might not be every item that I'm able to do this on, but if I really want an item and I feel this guy really wants it too, I'm going to put in a couple extra bids. Um, Sometimes I'll bid too, just to be just to push the person up because they're bidding on my stuff that I want, right? Like,
Okay.
so they might not be bidding on something that I really care about at the time, but I know that person really wants it. Their arms in the air and they're not putting it down. I might throw an extra bid or two in there because I'm looking at later on down the road. You know what I mean? Like they got to be writing down how much they're spending, and unless they got like endless pockets of money, like they got to, or at the end of the day, they're going to add it all up. And once the bride premiums in there, they're like, holy cripes, how did I spend like $1,500 on all this stuff? So the next auction, they're going to be a little bit more hesitant. You know what I mean?
So the auctioneer must love you then. If you're
Oh,
bidding up other people on stuff you don't even want just to get the price a little higher,
yep.
they must love you.
Yes, for sure. For sure. I don't know. I don't know if they know what I'm doing,
Right.
but they definitely know that I'm pushing up. I've had someone come up to me whose items it was and said to me after, he goes, thanks so much for coming out and all this stuff. But I said to him, I said, some of the
Yeah.
stuff went a little high. I said, I wasn't able to get it. And he goes, that doesn't matter. You bid other people off. He's happy about that. So
I owe you a drink.
he said that to me, right?
That's funny.
But that wasn't the auction place. That was one of the person. It was their stuff they were auctioning,
Right. Right.
and he's the guy that came and said that. So, um, but I don't do it because it makes them happy, or definitely they've never asked me to do anything like that, and I wouldn't do it anyways for that purpose. I do it for my purpose. I do it because people are in there trying to take things from me. It's back and forth. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm sure at the same time I'm getting that done to me at times too, right?
Yeah,
It's
this
just,
feels like a no win game. It sounds like
but
a lose game.
but the problem is,
Yeah.
then I'll back right off. If I feel that's happening to me, you take the garbage. You go ahead, take it. It's yours. You know what I mean? So now
Yeah.
you don't know what number because sometimes
Oh man.
sometimes I'll mix it right up. If I feel that's happening to me and I'm being pushed up,
Yeah.
I'll just drop it. I'll walk away. Nah, I'm done. You know what I mean? I don't care. I don't fall in love with the item. It's a deal. So now I'm thinking they don't know when I'm going to stop, and they could get stuck with it. So go ahead. And maybe I'm wrong psychologically. I've just made a miscalculation, but in
Right.
my mind, I'm proud of it. I did the right thing. You take it.
You're playing the player, not the cards.
Yeah. So it's just a game.
Yeah.
I usually pick up the crumbs. That's kind of the strategy I have. I'm pleasantly surprised most of the time. Although there are some times it's like, shit, this is not worth anything that I was hoping.
Oh yeah, we all do that.
And I'll throw it in the booth.
Yeah. I've taken stuff and donated it pretty well straight away back out again. Like if it's really a bad buy.
Yeah.
But honestly, usually when it's a live auction, for one thing, they're dying. So there's not as many as there used to be. If you're not careful, you'll get a lot of junk and you need to get it back out again. But when you buy stuff, often it's going to be cheaper, but not all the time. You still have to kind of watch yourself. Like, I think another thing too is like, you're just talking about how you bid. I don't go to live auctions that often. But when I do, it's I'll sit near the front, and I don't even look at the other person I'm bidding against, and I do fine. So you don't have to have this technique, but it depends how often you go. The thing I found though is like if I'm not near the front with the auction house I go to, they don't show the lots very well. So during the preview, I've learned to like if there's box lots I'm interested in, I write down what box the stuff is in.
Yeah.
Because they'll often bring the box out and you don't know like is that my box or is that not my box? Because they can have the same boxes or you've forgotten. So one tip is during the preview, I actually do write like, oh, this is in the, I don't know, the tobacco box. Because otherwise you can miss stuff, or at least I found I would miss stuff, or I'd have to get up and look to see what's actually in the box.
Yeah, I get up and look.
You get
Like
up and
I'll get up and I'll like if they're in a tray or a box lot section, I'll try to move in closer. Yeah, and sometimes you can't because everybody else is doing the same thing.
yeah.
But I'll try to move in a little bit closer to see what they're bidding on at that time. But for the most part, I already know. I already have a good concept. I've walked
Yeah.
around. I've seen it on their website or whatever the situation is. So the most part I know. And again, if it's $5 and it's a tray of shit, I'm probably going to grab it anyway. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
um,
I think the thing too is like with these auctions that we're talking about, these live auctions, there's no lot numbers. We talk about that because like
yeah,
the better higher end auctions, everything has a lot number. They usually have like a projector showing exactly what they're bidding on. But these live auctions that we're talking about, there's no lot number.
yeah, they're just going. They have no rhyme or reason. They just grab something that's next in line and they just put
Yeah.
it on. They got guys grabbing from different tables
Yeah.
to a degree because they can't. Because sometimes there might be three people's auction like stuff, right? So they have to make sure. Okay, this is this person's, and then we'll go to the next
Yeah.
person's, that kind of thing. But for the most part, they're just grabbing stuff off the table.
I don't know how they do it. Like I don't
Yeah,
know
well,
how they keep track of that stuff because to me it just looks chaotic. But they obviously know what they're doing. So
yeah, they know what they're doing.
So let's get back into the nitty gritty here.
Okay.
So the preview. So like let's say the auction starts at 10 and the preview starts at 9. You're there at 9, I assume.
Not necessarily. Sometimes I show up late. I try to get there at
Oh.
least to walk through it and preview it for sure.
That's
But
very interesting because I'm the complete opposite. So I'm very curious.
I'm not saying
try
I
to-
don't try to get there. It's just sometimes it's a little harder to get there.
Okay,
Right?
that's yeah, okay, that I understand. I
Yeah.
was like I was going under the impression that so here's the thing. I already know the answer to this, and I can already see Scotty's at the auction, and he's at the back, and I'm at the front in my little chair, looking at everything, and we're bidding, and an auction lot comes up. Let's say a box lot.
Okay.
It's $5. There's nothing in there I care about. There's nothing there Scotty cares about. I can almost guarantee that Scotty's going to still bid $5.
No. If I don't care
No.
about it, I'm waiting to be pushed to others. Dude, honestly, there's a lot of times I'm like, oh my God, please don't like try to convince me because they'll try to convince me to buy things sometimes. Right? Because they know
Scotty, come on, Scotty, it's $5.
No, it doesn't matter. There's a lot like I try to get a lot of things for $5, but I don't
Yeah.
try to get everything at $5, or I don't try to get things because they're at $5. I just try to get things that nobody wants, and I get it for $5. $5 or $10. So there's a difference there. Like there's a lot of stuff I'm like, please somebody put their hand up. Please somebody put their hand up, right? Like because I don't want it pushed to the next item. I don't want to deal with it. It's just crap. And so there's a lot of times I just leave it. So but if it's a box lot, that's a little different. I'm kind of talking about one or two items. I'll leave for $5 for sure because some stuff's just not worth it, or it's something that I've dealt with before and it's a tough sell. But if it's a box lot for $5, yeah, I'd probably go for the box lot because you don't know what's all in there. You know what I mean? So that's yeah.
So bringing that back to the preview, like for me, the preview is really important because that's when I'm deciding what I'm actually going to bid on. It's very rare that when I'm when items are coming up that I'll bid on stuff that I haven't already decided to bid on. And I think that's not true with you,
Well,
because you'll take advantage of those opportunities more than I might, because I'm more of a cherry picker, right? And I think your technique is better. Don't get me wrong here.
well,
And
I think it's different because I have the booth, Carl. So if I get a box lot of stuff that's got, you know, $10 items in it, that's not going to do me good if I'm selling on eBay only. But if I
right,
put it in the booth, a lot of those things are collectible to people. They're just not worthy of the eBay because of all the time and like, you know, there. First of all, there's fees and everything else, and I got to store it somewhere. It's just not worth it. But if I can just take it and throw it in the booth, a lot of that kind of stuff is small and it's very collectible. You know what I mean?
yeah, like a good example, if you get a box lot full of, I don't know, bottle openers that are selling between $1 to $5, and you buy the whole box of them for $5, then it's worth it. As
Right.
opposed to, like, if I'm going to buy those bottle openers, I want to see something that sells for at least 15 or $20 in there to make it worth my time to buy the lot to sell on eBay. That's the big difference.
And okay, so if I pay $5 for a tray of stuff, there might be three items that one item pays for the tray. You know, like, but there's a lot of items I'm going to throw away. They're chipped, they're cracked, they're no good. They're just not. I'm not interested in. I'm just going to throw them away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I throw away a lot or donate a lot because
Yeah, or donate it. But
you can get a lot of junk, and like no one needs that junk.
yeah, but there's a lot of stuff that's actually pretty decent. Like I remember once I got a bunch of tools, and the tools actually sold pretty well. But inside that tray of tools was also a weight, and it's a Sandow weight with springs in it. Sold that for like 100 or $125 on eBay, you know, or these Foo Dog Chinese, they were a ceramic, sold those for 100 something bucks. And I wouldn't have bid them or got them and learned about them if I didn't buy the $5 lot. Now, other things on that tray was sellable out of the booth, but most of it is just junk. Or if it's a lot of the same stuff, I'll probably just pick two or three of the what I think is nicer looking stuff, get my money back, make an extra 10, 15, $20 or whatever the situation is, and the rest is going to be donated. Right? Like I don't want to hold on to that garbage, but there's always little diamonds in the rough, right?
And like you said, sometimes you learn a new category or new items,
Yeah.
and it's from stuff
Look at
you
the
wouldn't
bottle
have ever
openers.
bought for until you were kind of like it came with everything else, anyways. And then you looked it up and went, "Oh my god, this is
Yeah,
the reason I bought the box lot wasn't this, and this is the best thing in the box lot." Right?
100%.
That
100%.
happens on
And
occasion.
there
It's a bit
sometimes
of a
small,
gamble. It's a bit of a gamble, but
yeah, but sometimes there's small little cast figures or wood carved figures, or
yeah.
there's little things in there that actually are collectible and have decent little values to them. But I don't know. What's your experience of live auctions, Carl? Do you do that, or is it primarily the online stuff that you really enjoy?
I say primarily online, but
Yeah,
I do occasionally go to live auctions. The issue for me is there's a time commitment, and I'm not always willing. I'm not a patient person, and they're all at least an hour away,
yeah,
and so there's a bit of like, so an hour there, an hour back, and then thankfully most of the auctions I have gone to let you pay anytime you want, and so you can get out of there. But
yeah.
uh, there's definitely a big time commitment. There's a lot of like hauling of stuff. Like definitely if you're gonna go, bring your IKEA bags because they'll save your butt. Uh, Often when I'm there, I'll actually take things out of the boxes and just dump them all in the IKEA bag and carry it out in one big lump.
I've sold
Yeah.
lots of items um, for bigger money,
Yeah.
but I just try to, when I say I pick up the crumbs, I just try to pick up things that I can get for cheap. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that the items are cheap. Like they can be well over $100, $200.
Basically, you're putting in $5, $10 gambles, right?
Well, I
Not
would say it's not a gamble because
right.
it's if I'm only spending $5 on it, I'm not really gambling. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
that's
so, okay,
okay.
like so maybe I didn't explain it properly. So if you get those mantle lusters, right, and you can buy them for $50 and sell them for 250, You know what I mean? I've done that. Um, if I can get a box lot of for $5 of sporting equipment, it has a boxing gloves, a catcher's mask from the 1800s. I'm selling the boxing gloves probably for 60 to 80 bucks. I got over $100 for my catcher's mask, but I paid $5 because nobody wanted it.
Yeah.
I remember for $30, I got 2 Sega Genesis games in the box, like consoles, uh, a ton of games, and they were all in a plastic laundry basket, right?
Yeah. There's
And
definitely
I paid like $30 for that. And it's like
Yeah.
nobody wanted it really. Like one person put in a bet. I went a little higher and I ended up getting it for $30. So it's not like I do pick and choose. I'm not just going out and buying all
No.
sorts of like little pieces of junk. There's a lot of stuff I turned down. There's a lot of stuff that I'm hoping other people do buy so that they don't look at Scott. Will you take this for $5? And I'm like, because I hate that in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But it has to look interesting. If there's a bunch of dishes or collector's plates for $5, I'm not touching those things.
No. Target
You know
practice.
what I mean?
You go
But
to the
if
local
there's something
shooting
like,
range.
wow, that looks interesting,
Yeah.
or it's got a bunch of sunglasses, right? They're just sunglasses. They could be all worn. I don't know. But if nobody wants these sunglasses, I'll buy them for $5 because I know there's going to be a pair in there that I can throw in the booth and get my $5 back. And there might be Ray-Bans. There might be something in there that I'm going to be pleasantly surprised about. Like those bottle openers, there was a Gucci bottle opener in there.
Oh,
I knew I wasn't taking a risk because I can put those bottle openers for $3 to $5 in my booth. They're going to get picked away. They take a little spot, but that Gucci was sweet. Like that was like
I remember that.
awesome.
I remember that thing. Yeah, that's the sort of lot I like. Just be aware when you bet, $10 on something, you're really often bidding. I don't know, what do you say, $13 or $14 or even more if you're not familiar with a particular buyer's premium. Just be aware of that. That can catch you a bit by off guard because the bill can be a little higher than you're thinking.
It usually is, especially when you start. Once you kind of know what's going on, then you're not surprised. You're ready for it. You protect yourself against that. But yeah, I've definitely been surprised.
Make sure I've seen sometimes where people are being way too subtle in their bidding, and they've lost out. I don't know how you bid, but I'm pretty obvious. But that's because I'm not really watching anyone else. There's a lot of people I'll do the nod. Once I've done my first bid, it's different.
Yeah,
I've done my bid, then I'll do the nod because they're looking at me to see if I'm going to increase my bid. But I'll never start with a nod or like a wink of the ear, all that stuff with the touch of the nose. Like I don't know how much that's actually true or just myth. I think most people will put up their hand, but
yeah, I've seen people where you're not sure who's bidding, even though they're in front of me, because
that's annoying. Yeah,
I don't know if they're doing like I'll flip the card in front of their chest or their heart type thing, but I'm behind them, so I don't see that, or I don't know if they're doing a thumbs up. I don't, they could be rubbing their nose. I've heard those kind of stories first. I don't care. I don't have time for that type of game. I'm more
into the game. You just might not know because they're physically in front of you, and you don't know if they're just doing this. They're not going to. The auctioneer's not going to let you bid against yourself. So because sometimes I'll bid and I'm not sure if I'm actually have the bid or not. So I'll just put my card up again just to make sure that I'm actually am the high bidder. Yeah. Because I have seen it where and people got really upset when they thought they had the high bid, but it wasn't. It was the person next to them or behind them. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that kind of stuff too. I also hate it when somebody else, I thought I was winning and they open it back up and you thought you won it and then they open it back up. Like that kind of irritates me a little bit, but
that I can't say that's never happened. That has happened, but it's really rare.
It's rarely rare, so I just kind of let it slide. But I'm like, you know what? If you're dumb enough to not be part of it, and I've had it happen before where I didn't make it known, like just say bid or yep or whatever, like make it known, right?
Because some of these auctioneers are older guys. Like I'm talking about, like in the 80s, and they're pretty swift because they're still up there, but they might just not see.
Well,
and they did the auction. She's, oh, I wanted that, and the auction is like, well, then you should have bid.
yeah, yeah. Then you should have been for
You
sure.
should have bid, right? And I think sometimes it must be hard to be an auctioneer too, because I've seen people. I remember one guy got really upset, and he was a regular too, and he owns or he has a booth at one of the places, and it's like he thought he won, but he hadn't won. It was the other. Like, to me, it was obvious that the other guy had won, but the auctions, that lot was over, so he went to go pick up his stuff, and he grabbed it and he took it to his area, and I'm thinking he didn't win. And eventually someone said he didn't win that thing, and they made him get back. And the guy was like, "The deal's a deal, deal's a deal." It's like, yeah, the deal's a deal, but you didn't win the deal. But it was okay in the end. But I'm sure the thing with these auctions too is it gets your adrenaline up. Like, I remember the first time I went, my hands was shaking, or my heart felt like it was coming out of my chest.
Oh, really?
When I first had to start bidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nerve wracking. Maybe you're not affected by such things, but I'm okay now.
I mean,
when
I was, I think I was 19 and I went to my first Smash Up Derby. My heart was pumping then, but so I do get affected by those things, Carl.
And we're talking like with poker, you get the shaking hand if you have a good hand.
Yeah,
that can happen with that's adrenaline. The same thing can happen in auctions, especially if you're new.
I think more so, and I totally agree with you. I think if I kind of analyze what I did when I first started, is I think I just sat back and I watched too much. I didn't partake because I wanted to make sure I wasn't making a mistake, and I watched how other people did it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was nervous about it. I was more of like or excited about it, I guess. I was kind of more of like, I don't want to make a mistake here, so I'm just going to kind of sit back and see what other people are doing.
I don't think I've ever reached the end of an auction.
Really?
Yeah.
Do that one time. Even if you have to go later just to make sure you're there at the end, you get your best prices at the end. In my mind, you get your best.
Yeah, maybe I need to leave, go for a walk, and come back, because it's like I'm antsy.
Yeah.
I need coffee directly into my veins. I'll even drink like that swill Tim Hortons coffee if I have to at that point.
Wow.
I had to put one dig in there. Because I don't think I've ever waited to the end of the auction, because like I'm not a patient guy, and
yeah, I think you have to have patience. I don't know for sure, but I think I am patient, and I think that helps me just to be patient. I don't know for sure, because I don't know the benefits of not being patient. Like, I don't know. I don't mind staying to the end. I don't mind. Sometimes they'll go through things that I don't have a clue, or like they might have some coins, or they might do some jewelry, and you got a couple ladies up there buying everything for $1,000 and bidding each other up. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do anything here for the next 20 minutes. You know what I mean? And I'll just kind of sit there and wait it out. It gets boring, but maybe I'll pack some of my stuff that I've already bid up that's glass, and I'll buy I'll find a box and wrap that up and pack the boxes while I'm waiting for stuff that I'm interested in to come back up. But I always stay right to the end. Yeah, I'm always the last one to leave, to be honest. I know some of the guys that work at the auction, like I've brought them bottles of rye before, or a case of beer. And they'll come over and talk to me about like the one guy, we were bidding each other on a camera, and I just let him have it. You know what I mean? Like, he works there, and I'm like, after 5, 10, and 50, I think he got it for $20. It's 2 cameras. The Olympus was easily $150 Olympus. He comes over to me. He goes, my daughter wants an Olympus camera. You know, the ones with the Zeiss lens in it?
Yeah.
And he goes, she wants one so bad. And he goes, that's not the one. When he walks away, right? He'll come by and he'll say, because he sells on eBay a little bit too, right? He's an older guy.
Yeah, like he's not that too.
He's not in it to win it. He's just kind of a hobby thing. But he likes certain things. But he's always looking at me. He goes, you sure you don't want this? You don't want this, right? Like, he'll give me heads up on things too.
So I'm not sure what else. I think maybe that's it. Like, mostly just have fun, know your limits, be aware that maybe everything you buy is often as is.
I would say don't get caught up. Like, the item might be awesome and you want it, but you got to be careful too, right? Like if you want it for your personal self, then you spend whatever you want. But if you got to resell it, try like you got to make sure you're not getting caught up.
Yeah, I've definitely I remember the lots I paid too much for. They
Yeah.
kind of burned in my head a bit.
Yeah, and I've done it too. Like as much as I try not to, like it's happened. Um,
But I've had the opposite too, like the $5 lots that had $100 item in it for sure. So you lose some and you gain some, and I think the main thing is for those have fun. Be prepared to invest lots of time, and if you've never gone, be prepared to go for a few times before you feel comfortable. You know, the one thing I try not to do is go there and just sit there and never buy anything because that can be very frustrating too. So
yeah, and I always you said this before, take cash. I always take $1,500.
yeah,
Usually I'm spending about 1,000. Now, why do I take $1,500 when they take credit cards and debit cards? Because I went there once and the internet or whatever reason they could not get the debit machine working and the
oh
credit
god,
card machine working.
yeah,
So it could screw up how things went. I think they were doing direct no, what do you call that?
e-transfers or
E-transfers. I think they were doing something like that. They changed. They were able to do that for somehow, but for whatever reason they couldn't get the system going, and it probably was a pain in the ass for people who didn't bring cash, right? So they announced it before to just say we're having problems right now with this. We're not sure what's happening. It will only happen once, but I always take cash. Always.
yeah, like some of the ones around here just take cash. So I prefer using credit card whenever I can, but that just for accounting purposes. But I bring cash too. So anyone who's in your area, Scott, they should you have $1,500 in cash on you every time you go to these auctions.
Yep. And
So roll Scott.
probably 6 to 1,000 when I'm out yard selling too. So you want to try to take it?
Come
Come
on,
and try.
you come and try. Yeah, that was great. I think I'm not sure. Is there anything you wanted to add? We're an hour and a half here.
No, I think that's pretty much it. I just enjoy talking about it. Like I'm sure there's lots of stuff I miss.
Yeah.
I don't try to be like a super pro about it. But I've done this many times. Like I might be over 100 auctions. Like I go to these things often, and like it could be more. Like I don't really know. I've just been to so many of these things, and I really enjoy them. And you can find some really unique things, and you're seeing what people are willing to pay for some things, which is
That's a good
mind-boggling,
point.
right?
Yeah,
It's
that's always
mind-boggling
yeah,
sometimes. Like it's like
yeah.
I might put $50 there, and all of a sudden it's at $1,000.
You know, like what
I
did I
was willing
miss?
to pay $50. You know what I mean?
Actually, that's a really good tip, and that actually is what I forgot to mention about online auctions. Is that when they're over, I don't do this often, but occasionally I'll list from once it's closed from highest to lowest. Anything that makes me go, "What the?" When I look at the how much they sold for, is kind of a good way to find new bolos,
Yeah,
new things to look out for, because it's like, yeah, anything that surprises me, I'm like, well, obviously, my knowledge is lacking in that one area, so that's a great point.
yeah. And you do learn a lot. Like I've learned so much just going to the auctions. What like and you can also learn a little bit from like you gotta feel out the guy that's running the auction, the auctioneer, and what his knowledge base is. The main one I go to, his knowledge is completely in collectible high end glass. He's a collector. He loves that stuff. He'll
Yeah,
even say to people that got a good deal on a piece that listen, if you want to sell that to me, come and talk to me after. I'd be interested in buying that after the show, that type thing. Um,
well, he
but
doesn't bid because I some
the auctioneer does not bid. Some of the employees do, but the
okay,
auctioneer doesn't bid.
because in some
Um,
places I have been the auctioneer is allowed to bid. He said
really,
I'm
eh?
bidding. He said I'm bidding on
Yeah,
this.
he doesn't.
It's rare though. It's
Yeah,
rare. It's usually when something's like way too low, then he might be like, okay, I'm gonna buy it for myself to resell.
yeah.
But but yeah, it's honestly it doesn't happen that often. I wouldn't worry about that at all. I think the only thing that we didn't talk about is your technique of bidding at a live auction.
My
Uh,
technique.
yeah, so like say we both want something and I bid 10 Are you going to wait it out, or are you going to bid 15 immediately
So this is live, or this is
live,
um
like
yeah,
against another dealer, right?
yeah, like it's really tough. It's really tough. I don't know. It kind of just I feel it out in the moment, really.
Yeah,
So I can't really
I don't see a
generalize
lot
it.
of that. I don't
But
see a lot
sometimes
of
I'll say no,
yeah,
and then it's just one more time, one more, last time, last go, and then I'll put my hand back up. And sometimes I'll just hold my hand up, like what is that person really thinking? Like sometimes I think I can overthink it too, because really they've already have a price in mind. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So I think for the most part, I just try to grab my price. And if I think people are bidding a lot on stuff that I want, I'm going to push them higher. Like that, I think my strategy comes in how much am I going to push these people? You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
Am I going to really make them pay a lot of money because I know they're going to in it to win it? Or do I have to be careful? And maybe it's just like chip away a little higher here and there. Like I just kind of outweigh it because sometimes people are just in it and they go mad hungry at the beginning. And you got to feel that out too because they're not going to have money left over later on. So I'll just wait it out, let these people beat each other up, and I'll come and pick up the stuff near the end or the middle, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's just I think you develop a feel over time, and it doesn't mean I'm right. In my mind, I might think I'm right, but in reality, it probably doesn't mean as much as I think it does. You know what I mean?
yeah. I don't really worry about those strategies as much. I just have my high bid and go for it, and that
But
seems to work.
I know I definitely make people pay a little extra by putting a couple. I know that for sure,
Wow.
and I'll bid on just about anything that I think I can sell. Right? Like I really will. And so like I'm not there just for glass. I'm not there just for wood carvings. I'm not just there for pictures and paintings. I'm there for everything.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm going to bid it to. And it's if there's less profit for them, then that's just the way it is. You know what I mean? They're not caring. They don't care about me. They don't care if they get it from me and they take it.
yeah.
So it's like poker, right? So I want them to go at the end of the day, pay for their items. Like, oh my god, why did I buy all this stuff? Like, holy crap!
What
I
does
way
Scott
overpaid.
do to me? I'm gonna slash his tire.
Yeah, I want them to feel the pain.
Well, I think that was a pretty good talk about auctions. If anyone else has comments or strategies, I'd love to hear them. To find them, usually I just go on, like everyone else, just go on the internet and search. And sometimes it can be a bit of a struggle to find them all. But once you got your links, like you'll see the same auctioneers all the time. And yeah. So what do you want to talk about next week?
Let's have a little bit of fun with this one, Carl.
Yeah, it'll be great. I'm hoping people. I expect at least Randy. I expect you to have at least one comment about your reseller when, so we can add it to the podcast.
Yeah, so we'll do a show on you're a reseller when, and give us signs of someone that stands out as a reseller, whether you see them at an auction or you see them at a yard sale. Like signs that show that these people are resellers. And Randy, if you want to put in more than one, that's fine. That's awesome. Doing it wrong, chop. There's a number of people out there that have left comments in the past that
Julie as well. Yeah, I hope Julie leaves one.
Yeah, Julie for sure. Red Trunk Relics.
Yeah, that's Julie.
Red Trunk Relics. You can check her out as well. She's got a YouTube. She's mostly on Instagram though, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't use it. I know Instagram, man. So I can.
Dude, I signed up for Instagram, but I hardly go on it. Like it's just. So I apologize for that one, but more so Instagram, I think, than YouTube. But check her out, and Julie, if you're in there and you're a reseller when, right?
Yes. We'll have a little fun next episode.
We'll have a little fun with it, but we'll tell some stories or something like that. But that's it, Carl. We went a little bit long on this one.
Yeah, this is a long one. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh well.
So I'll have to edit this one hard and heavy. Just for anybody out there, we are an hour and 40 minutes in, and I got to condense this to an hour and 10 minutes. So
wow.
Yeah, it's going to be.
You do what you do.
You might just hear me talk. I'll have to cut all Carl's section out.
Oh man, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. April Fool's one. It's just like Every time I speak, you just cut right there, and then you go back to yourself. Yeah,
I wouldn't do that, Carl. I wouldn't do that. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so all right, so that's it, Carl. Any last words?
Nope, that's it. I hope everyone has a great week. Tell a friend, please.
Yeah,
we're 86.
We're on Spotify and YouTube, so
yeah,
you can go either one. If you want to leave a comment, probably best to go on YouTube. Reseller Evolution. We upload a new video every Friday, or not video, new audio recording every Friday at 10 a.m. So, and Spotify and YouTube. So, Reseller Evolution.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week.
Have a good week. You too, Carl. Have a great week.
Hey, you too, Scott.
Bye.
Bye.